So we'll start with a very real beginner level problem that we saw from the UPSC statistics that when we read the reports. How many of you have seen this advertisement on the Hindu front page a couple of weeks ago? Okay, apart from the ad being creative and finer points being there, the most striking and the most important points from this ad were these two lines. One, if you are a beginner and if you are attempting UPSC, then the chances of you clearing UPSC in your first attempt is just 7%. And this has been a consistent UPSC statistics from 2021, 2022, 2023. Okay. This diagram is basically from the UPSC report which came, right? So आप देख सकते हो 50% of the people who appear for the exam are beginners, but out of those 100 who finally make it, only 6.2% are beginners, right? Most of the people clear this exam in their third and fourth attempt. Okay. And that is like a very, very compelling statistics for you guys to remember. Then, दूसरी important बात, 2027, and those of you who are going to write the exam in 2027, this is the only year when the veterans will get one more shot. Otherwise, UPSC has come up with a new circular, a new notification that if you're in services, you will not be allowed to take the test unless you bunk the service out. Okay, so this makes the 27 attempt super critical. And this makes this webinar super critical for you. We're going to give your first good shot in 26 or 27 or 28. Okay. Now, here's what has changed in the UPSC exam, both in prelims and mains. And both me and Rupal will share our learnings with facts, with anecdotes, with actual papers and our attempts across the rankers. Ki kya badla hai? Exam in one simple language has become more analytical, heavy on critical thinking. How many of you have gone through the previous year question paper at least once? Even if you've not attempted the paper or even if you've not completed syllabus, how many of you have gone through the verbiage of the question that has come? Paper across these 2 years, these two bouts of years are very, very different in the way questions are being framed, in the way prelims में आपसे कितना logical elimination technique की expectations है. Otherwise, you'll be lost in the sea of knowledge. And this is why the session is on essays and ethics, which are arguably the two most difficult papers apart from optional. So there's a trinity, holy trinity, which we say in UPSC. One is your essay, one is your ethics, and one is your optional. अगर आप इनमें काफी अच्छी महारत हासिल कर लेते हो ना, if you have mastery over these subjects, then your chances to score high in mains increase dramatically. If your main score increases by, let's say, 415 GS papers, and then you get close to around 120 and so on in the essay. If you score maximum in your mains, then your chances of making it through the interview and get a good rank, get your preferable IAS, IPS rank increases dramatically. Okay, so when I teach, the idea is that you should make your mains preparation interview proof. इतने number ले आओ mains में कि interview के marks पे rank decide ना हो तुम्हारी. IAS, IPS service decide हो सकती है, but rank आए या ना आए ये decide ना हो. अब this was the paper of UPSC 2025. दो सेक्शन आते हैं ऐसे पेपर में, सेक्शन ए, सेक्शन बी. ठीक है. After the paper happened, I did a quick poll on the Letter and Spirit group, and as you can see, 39%, 40% people attempted the question 4, the option 4. Best lessons are learned through bitter experiences. And in the section B, the most attempted was, it is best to see life as a journey and not as a destination. And these two questions were most attempted largely because they derive heavily from the PYQ, from the previous year questions in the essay paper itself, right? So there's a huge relevance of understanding PYQs, understanding the micro themes from which questions have been asked. And while we make these micro thematic PDF for the GS papers, GS 1 to 3, where it's easier, for the essay paper, it's slightly difficult because यहाँ पे philosophy, psychology का बहुत ही interesting combination होता है. ठीक है, so essay paper post 2021 have become both reflective and analytical. Okay, and I'll show you how, but I leave that task to first Rupal to come in between, right? The framework with which we teach essays over here and I teach essays is called the TAS framework. This framework is drastically different from the PESTEL and all other kind of frameworks, which might still be relevant for your GS papers, but are not relevant for the essay paper at all. It's especially post 2022 papers. You increasingly have to become more analytical, more argumentative in your approach. And ये framework है जो we help you master. Okay. And I'll get to this framework with the help of one of these essays in the same session. So आपको पता लग जाए कि यूज कैसे होता है, भले ही अभी आप लिख ना पाओ. But उससे पहले I'll introduce Rupal to all of you here, right? So you all know Rupal ranked 43 this year. Rupal came to me already at the peak of her maturity. So she already had imbibed these frameworks, jane na jane. She's a lawyer by profession, so she already had those analytical skill and the trigger intact within her. And when she came and when I reviewed her essays, I just had two major feedback. One was that, the kind of examples and the kind of quotation she was bringing to the table were like, I had not seen such examples. So the Kurt Vonnegut example, which you see, ye right side mein, tiger got to hunt, bird got to fly, man got to sit and wonder why. ये जो पूरा poetic सा and quote है from Kurt Vonnegut's novel, which is Cat's Cradle. This is unique and it fits the need in the essay. ठीक है. दूसरा, because she was so good with her examples, I had to nitpick and tell her that now you would be grilled on the choice of words that you make in your essay writing. So in one of the argument that she made in her essay was presently our government is wandering in the search of developed India by 2047. And all I had to nitpick was ki, you can't use the word wandering here because government usually strategizes. Government of India, whichever political party is in the power, they will strategize, they will observe, they will have all those feedback mechanisms. They will not just wander whimsically into the developed India. Okay? That was mostly all. Then some rigor with tasks, but that's it. That's about it. And Rupal was already there when I first had a chat with her. So now over to you, Rupal. Why don't you take the whole, Janta through your essay ke micro understanding, and once we are done there, then I'll take over with some fun argument session with them.
Sure, sir. Thank you for the kind introduction. So, as sir has already pointed out, the essays which UPSC is asking sometimes do take a lot from the previous year essay topics. And this year as well, we saw a repetition of some topics which were asked in previous years. But first thing which I want to talk about is how to pick a topic. So I was discussing how to select topics. So I personally went with topics which I thought I could interpret them more broadly, and I would have content for them. But also, most importantly, what others will probably not want to try. So a lot of people, sir has already shown the statistics. A lot of people selected the essay best lessons learned via bitter experiences. But I will talk about my topic, which was thought finds a world and creates one also. Now, I would just a disclaimer: do not select a topic just because you think no one else will pick it. You don't know in the examination hall what everyone else is thinking. But from my experience, I know that topics which are repeated are often chosen by students. So that is why I personally thought, thought finds a world and creates one also appeals to me. And I will better be able to elaborate it, in a more innovative manner with good examples. So sir has already shown you the essay which I had attempted with him and his comments. I would want to first of all tell you how to get over that anxiety of attempting essay. So I will go in a stepwise manner. Firstly, you all should go and take a look at the previous year essay topics and try to identify the themes from those topics. I will tell you a few common themes which I had identified by myself. One theme is call to action. So many of the essays which UPSC asks revolve around the fact that, just sitting and thinking is not enough. Just being in your comfort zone is not enough. You need to go out there, face the challenges, and that is what will lead to your ultimate success. So a few topics like the cost of doing nothing is the cost of doing wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. Now, this essay topic, if you understand it properly, is nothing but a call to action. The topic itself is emphasizing that not doing anything is worse than, doing something wrong. So at least you should try. And this is a theme which has also been repeated in previous years. For example, a ship in the harbor is not safe. A ship in the harbor is safe, but that is not what a ship is for. Again, This essay topic is wanting the aspirant to understand that being in the comfort zone, that is the harbor, is not going to yield you anything. And that is not what a human being is meant to do in life. You should always go out of your comfort zone, face the obstacles, and that is how you will make any progress in life. Human beings are meant to act and not just sit and look or observe. So you understand that these two topics both deal with a general theme of importance of action in human life. I hope you're appreciating this. So this is a common theme which UPSC asks. Another theme which I have identified is democracy, the importance of rights, the importance of free speech. These are all common themes. And UPSC is often known to ask questions on the importance of a democratic setup, and how free speech is a right which should be valued in any society. So once you identify all these themes, another important theme is women empowerment. For example, I remember one of the topics was girls are always burdened with restrictions, while boys are burdened with expectations. So this again is a topic which revolves around the socially conditioned roles based on gender, based on the sex. So again, this is something which deals with gender equality. So these are common themes which you will be able to identify once you look at the previous year questions of essay paper. Now, second step after identification of themes is collecting content. Now, I do understand that you do not know what kind of content to collect. You don't understand where to begin. For that, I will advise that you first go and take a look at the toppers copies or any toppers notes. You can take a look at my notes also, which I have uploaded on my Telegram channel. See what all kind of content I have collected. Majorly, I have collected, quotes on themes like democracy, quotes from Rousseau, quotes from Socrates, on the theme of democracy, or on themes of women empowerment. I have collected quotes from Mary Estelle, a very famous feminist. So all these things you will be able to do only after you know what are the themes. Okay. So the content which you collect, it can be from newspapers, it can be from any toppers notes, like I said. It can also be from the essays which the toppers have written. I myself, the verse which sir had just displayed on the screen, the Kurt Vonnegut's The Cat's Cradle verse which I had written, it was again from the copy of a topper only. So I did not myself go and read novels. You do not have that kind of time in your preparation for mains. So you cannot sit and read all the novels, okay? So what I did was I strategically picked up topics, verses, poems, anecdotes from toppers' essays. The Cat's Cradle verse itself was picked up from, I think, Kalpana Pandey ma'am's copy. She had the highest essay score in one of the previous years. So I'm not saying that you blindly copy paste anything from any topper's copy, but you have to take it in yourself. You have to understand what the verse actually means for you to be able to use this across topics. Now, I will also like to point out that this one verse worked for me a lot. The essay topic which I attempted this year, Thought Finds a World and Creates One also. In the introduction itself, you will not believe I used the same verse. Because this verse is talking about man got to sit and wonder why, which means it is trying to emphasize the importance of thinking, and that man is made to think. Man tries to make sense of things. That is what distinguishes us from mere animals like tigers and birds. So this verse helped me not just in the essay which I practiced with sir, but also in my actual examination. So once you begin collecting content, you will realize that automatically you're able to replicate it across various topics, For example, from Mary Estelle's novel, one quote which I had collected was, why is it that all men are born equal? She said, if men are born equal, how is it that all women are born slaves? So this all men are born equal, it is from the French Charter of Rights and Duties, I think. And during the French Revolution, the one which was adopted, and she was trying to question the inequality, the hypocrisy of the charter itself that gave rights to men and not women. So I picked up that quote, I understood the context, I understood the themes across which I can use this quote, and then I have made a lot of use of it across my practice essays and in fact in the actual examination. So when you start collecting quotes, thematically, you will realize that you will have a lot of rich content by the time you come to actually write essays, or even till the actual examination. The process of content collection goes on and on and on. It's a layered process. You will, once you have to start somewhere, and eventually you will reach there. I would also advise you to take a look at the essay fodder that I had myself prepared. I had taken a lot of help from various toppers' notes. So I would, advise you also to work smartly and not begin from scratch. Take whatever you have available from toppers and then keep adding on to it through original examples collected from newspapers, from any coaching materials also. So that is how you build up content for essay. Also, one favorite content building exercise for me was reading short stories. I am an avid short story reader. I like reading short stories, and Munshi Premchand was one of my favorite, authors. So a lot of his stories revolve around the themes which UPSC is also interested in. For example, you talk about inequality in the society. So a lot of Munshi Premchand stories, for example, Kafan, etc., talk about the deeply rooted casteism and inequality in the Indian society. So once you read these short stories, you will be able to, automatically use it in one of the, in any of the essays, either as introduction, somewhere in the body. It looks very good. If you mention along with the author, the name of the story, and then simply write the gist of it and connect it to the theme of the essay. So this is what I have done. In fact, I will give you an example from this year's essay only. One of the topics in section B was contentment is natural wealth, and the luxury is artificial poverty. So in this essay topic, in the introduction, I wrote a short story Eidgah by Munshi Premchand. I'm sure a lot of you must have read it if you all have studied from CBSE. I think we had the story in one of our Hindi textbooks. So the Eidgah story talks about, a boy buying only like a chimta for his grandmother. So briefly, very briefly, you explain and you write how the other kids bought toys which broke immediately after they went home, but Hamid got a chimta which was very long lasting. And his contentment after he saw that his grandmother was not using chimta to was using chimta and not burning her hands while making chapatis, it gave him a lot of contentment. So this is how, I interwove the topic with the short story which I was writing. And this is how you build up content for essay. This is what separates an aspirant from a rank holder, that you being able to bring something original or something creative in the essay. Okay, so we'll come in a bit to how to write introductions, etc. So yeah, the next step after collecting content is you being able to understand an essay topic which you're going to attempt. Now, understanding begins with breaking up the essay topic. When you look at a topic, you try to identify the underlying theme, what UPSC is asking you to address. For example, in contentment is natural wealth, luxury is artificial poverty. If you think the here UPSC is trying to bring two topics in one essay, that is materialism versus spiritualism, minimalism, howsoever you interpret it. And this again is a theme from the previous year questions. So you will once you have done the exercise of identifying themes, this essay topic will not be a problem, because you will already have content for materialism and spiritualism or minimalism, So this understanding of the essay topic comes with content creation itself. When you're reading toppers notes, toppers essays, you will come across a lot of essay topics, and when you read that essays, you will develop an understanding automatically, that what kind of questions are asked, how they have interpreted the essay topic. So you break down the essay topic. For example, the topic which I had mentioned, a ship in the harbor is safe, but that is not what the ship is for. So we had interpreted that the underlying theme is call to action. Okay. And you have to interpret any essay topic very, very broadly. The first rule is interpret an essay topic broadly. Try to find synonyms of every keyword which is mentioned in the essay. For example, ship in the harbor is safe. So for ship, a ship can be an individual. You can compare a ship to an individual sitting at home, not doing anything because he's worried that it's raining outside. So you're just sitting waiting for the rain to stop. So there you are safe in your home, but then again you may be missing out on something important which is going on in the outside world because you are afraid to face the rain. So a ship can mean an individual. A ship can also mean an institution which is not willing to go for reforms. For example, not adopting technology because they are resistant to change. So this again, a ship in the harbor, an institution emphasizing on the status quo and not wanting to reform the processes in which it works is again the example of a person not wanting to take risks in life because they are afraid. If they do not take risks, how will you evolve? So this is how you interpret any essay topic broadly. Try to find out synonyms of everything. For example, harbor. The keyword harbor, a ship in the harbor is safe. What all can harbor mean? A harbor can be a house, it can be a comfort zone, it can be, status quo, like I already mentioned. So these are the kind of various synonyms that you try to identify in any essay topic. Now, once you've interpreted the essay topic very broadly, the next exercise that you should do is try to create a skeleton. It is often said that brainstorming is the most essential part of an essay. In fact, once you brainstorm and you have made a skeleton for the essay, half of your job is done. So, this brainstorming exercise, what it means is that you look at the essay topic, you try to very roughly jot down what will you write in the introduction, what will your body be, and what your conclusion will be. Very roughly, a very rough sketch. Because if you do that exercise, you will not falter while writing your essay, and your essay will have a very good flow because your ideas are clear. You have brainstormed it enough. So, again, going back to the example of ship in the harbor is safe. In the introduction, you can take examples from multifarious, spheres. You can go for Albert Einstein, not being satisfied with the existing state of things, trying to talk about theory of relativity, discovering the gravitational waves. Taking risks. Galileo, not standing up against the church, defending his own theory. So all these things they were not these individuals were not trying to play safe. They were challenging the whatever obstructions they were facing it head on. So you should try to find examples which are relevant to the essay topic. Even my knowledge of examples is a bit rusted now because I have not been in touch with essay writing, but believe me, if you're practicing even one essay every Sunday, you'll be able to write brilliant essays in about 1.5 month. You will be. That is after the collection of content.
Rupal, I'll just pause you for a moment here. Can
Yeah.
you give us a brief of your undergrad days? Like, were you a writer? Did you had any experience with good writing, or was it all just after your UPSC preparation started, you started experimenting with words and language?
Sir, I was not a writer. I was neither a very good writer. I mean, I all the only experience I had of writing was just the answers for my examinations, nothing else.
Okay. So nothing as such. Because I remember Animesh, when he came to UPSC prep, he already was like a editor of his magazine, and he dabbled decently in the extracurricular at his college. So sometimes that's like a good head start, which most of the rank holders they come through with. So this was not the case with you. You kind of improvised on the go.
Yes, sir. I had very little experience of editing things. I mean, I was good in drafting memorials for moot court competitions, but that works very differently from how you write an essay because that is all legal, technical. So I did have good experience of drafting things because I'm a lawyer. I'm used to drafting contracts, etc. So
Yeah.
maybe my vocabulary was a bit richer than any average, student. But otherwise, writing essays were a completely new game for me. It took me some time to. I will, in fact, share one of my older essays which I wrote during the beginning of my preparation.
Hmm. Yeah, please do. Because
Yes.
you just want to know the arc, which you traverse through. That kind of makes it very human for you kind of humanizes the whole preparation journey for the students. Like the
Yes.
same way we did for animation, his first answer in one of our current affairs module was, I mean, not that good. And then he improved consistently week over week, and eventually his answers were like jam packed with information. So I think that's important. What I'll do now is take a pause from from basically your strategy, and we'll come back to it again. And if the janta over here is okay with this, we'll do a simple exercise so that these things become more, they make more meaningful and practical for you. Okay, and I'll obviously handhold you guys, but just stay with us for this. Okay, this is, let's say, the topic from last year. Best lessons are learned through bitter experiences. And this is where Rupal was saying that, we automatically start with our first default answer. And we don't always reflect back and see that kuch humne add kiya hai masala isme ki nahi, have we added more depth or not. We don't reflect immediately because we just come from our whatever college, job, jahan se bhi hum aa rahe hain. This was the question which was attempted by most of the people in the section A. And I have kind of, given you guys, I mean, I've layered 5 different kinds of arguments which you can write progressively as you become more mature essay writers. Okay, so this is for everyone. तो थोड़ा बहुत मेहनत लगेगी, but you have your chat windows open. I'll give you the first cue, so that's easy for you. By default, anyone who reads this topic will kind of paraphrase the topic in this way, that if suffering forces us to confront reality as it is rather than how we wish to be, and if confronting reality is a good basis for learning experiences, then yes, this thesis is right. Right? This is how most of us will think. Matlab, we think of an essay topic and we'll remember whatever cliche our parents or our teachers would have told us. And mostly यही होता है कि यार थोड़ा बहुत गिर विर जाओगे तो उसके बाद कुछ सीख जाओगे तो कुछ बन जाओगे, right? But this argument, and I'm hoping all of you guys are with me on this, right? Because I want to make it as simple and as real as it is when you start attempting the essays. And the problem with this argument is that while it is a valid argument, but it's very superficial. Okay, these are one of those things which sound nice, but in the real world, they kind of fail, or they tend to fail in the real world. And we all know why they fail. Sometimes trauma does not give you wisdom. Sometimes you just buckle down under pressure, right? So you read this topic, you come up with a simple line, and if you put that as your introduction or you put that as a definition, आपका ऐसे स्टार्ट ही बहुत इमेच्योरिटी से होगा. नहीं किया है तो अगर समझ में आ रहा है तो बताना, हाँ, बिकॉज देयर आर levels beyond this and I want to carry you with it, right? So what I want to tell you is that this is basically how we start our life with. Okay, and ऐसे हर टॉपिक में मिलेगा. The one which Rupal was taking, the ship in the harbor is the safest place for the ship to be, but that's not what the ship is for. And once you go mature, I mean, I'll tell you the end game of that essay topic is this: key, the ship by the very definition is something which has to, cross the seas. It's not a container. It's not an iron and, solid container which you're supposed to bank on the shore. By the very definition, the name form which it has been given, and that is where you even take it to the individual level. जो रूपल ने बोला कि तुम्हें अगर एक whatever, if you've been given a life, a human life, then you have to go for the karma yoga or whatever the karma and whatever the action, and there you now bring in the philosophy. So if you go mature, if you go nuanced in your essay understanding and interpretation, as she said, go wide in the interpretation, आप धीरे धीरे करते करते ना इस level 1 argument से level 2 argument पे आओगे. And the level 2 argument would look something like this. This is again for everyone, and this is a coherent argument. And it basically, what it does is it basically gives you nuances in the thesis. So पहले वाला argument जो था वो बहुत ही valid sentence था कि suffering focuses, helps us confront the reality which is in front of us. When we confront the reality for what it is, then we learn from what it is rather than what we wish it to be, and then we grow. This is basically me paraphrasing the same thesis. मतलब मैंने कुछ काम नहीं किया है, सेम ही थोड़े और वर्ड्स ऐड करके लिख दिया. थोड़ा भी if I go deeper, I'll tell you the mechanism how it happens. ठीक है? And this is where coherence comes in. So pleasant experiences, usually they confirm our biases, right? We have our confirmation biases. If you're in our comforts, like the ship, if it's in the comfortable zone, कोई problem नहीं होगी उसको. Same experience day on day आ रहे हैं, it will only confirm the bias कि हाँ, life is cool and chill, right? They don't rupture our frameworks, right? I don't know how many of you have been preparing for UPSC or taken coaching, but if you have attended any of the essay sessions before, you would see that this one is slightly different. It's slightly making you think more. It is making you challenge your own assumptions. So I'm in a way rupturing your reality. When I rupture your reality, when I fracture your known assumptions, then I give you an opportunity to reconstruct yourself, right? Now is an opportunity where you come face to face with your reality and now you rejig the whole thing. Let me know. I'll slow down my pace if you want me to. but I mean, you guys should be. This is just level 2, and we have to go to level 5. Okay, जैसे कि घर वाले बोलते हैं, right, कि एक बार हारोगे, the cliches, right, कोशिश करने वाले की कभी हार नहीं होती, ये वो जो ज्ञान तुम सुन के फेंक देते हो, वो ज्ञान क्योंकि लेवल 2 आर्ग्यूमेंट है ना वो, तो इसलिए तुम फेंक देते हो. So feel good about yourself because you will not fall for that ज्ञान again, right? But it sounds good. It sounds valid that, if I fail in the exam now, if I reflect back, I'll understand how to, give a better attempt next time in UPSC, and so in my second or third or fourth attempt, I'll have a better probability. But there is no evidence to this, right? Let me take you through one of the exercise I did with Rupal and all these guys in the group, which was this. There is a Sanskrit shloka, and I don't know how many of you know about this, or you would have seen some lines from the shloka. Vidya dadati vinayam. So there is a very famous shloka in Sanskrit. Vidya dadati vinayam. Vinayat dadati patratam. Patratam. Basically, the whole thing goes this key. Learning gives you humility. With humility comes the worthiness. In Indian philosophy, worthiness is a very big thing, right? Are you worthy? In Gita, Arjun had to prove to be worthy of Krishna's advice and wisdom. Otherwise, Krishna wasn't giving him any gyan. With worthiness comes wealth, with wealth comes righteousness, and with righteousness comes happiness. I mean, with wealth, you can do the righteousness wali cheezein. You can put your money in the right kind of societal things, in religion and societal upliftment. And with that comes the true happiness. अब ये जो statement है ना, this is very coherent, right? It follows the logic from A to B, B to C, C to E. This shlok and the lines as they follow are absolutely logical, but they don't give me an example yet. So if you write something like this, you will get marks, but you might not get the highest marks. This is a coherent argument, but not a cogent argument. Cogent arguments are those arguments where I also give you the evidence to the same. Okay? So this bitter experiences or whatever best lessons are learned through the bitter experiences. It's a great argument that you're making, because when everything is pleasant, I only confirm my biases, and the moment shit hits the fan, then I start seeing acha kya galat ho gaya, and then I start reconstructing my reality. This is a coherent argument, and we teach you how to make it, and you common sensical है, आपको भी समझ में आता है कैसे करना है. Then comes an argument which is coherent plus has examples and anecdotes and facts to back it. Okay, पढ़ो इसको. Take a moment and read this, right? So what I do now is, after making my coherent argument, after telling you, hey, this is how A leads to B, B leads to, this is the cause and effect of, why bitter experiences make for the best learning lessons. I give you examples कि इंडिया के बेस्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव रिफॉर्म्स हुए थे, whatever, after the crisis of 1947 में हमने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनाया, we took from every best of the worlds. 1991 में we had this whole LPG reform thing, and we had near bankruptcy, and so we reformed the Indian economy, right? I can take examples from psychology. ये सब एग्जांपल्स आएंगे, जैसे कि रूपल ने कहा कि आई कीप रीडिंग एंड कलेक्टिंग एनेक्डोट्स फ्रॉम पीपल एंड स्टोरीज and newspaper, right? Bankruptcy obviously will count as traumatic, no, Aditya? If that doesn't count as traumatic, what will? Right? So you will now start looking at your daily newspaper reading or your weekend classes or whatever books you're reading with the lens of key, okay, is it coming under any micro theme of call to action or democratic reforms or women empowerment or whatever? And not just fact wise, exactly why it happened and what happened. Okay? This is a good argument making. So when you have to make an argument for your essay, if you have to defend a topic, you have to make an argument which has to be coherent, and then you have to add an example to prove the coherence. But, and there's a big but here, if you are reflective enough, if you are mature enough, you will start challenging the assumptions of the essay topic itself. And this is where your maturity will come through. So while this argument is coherent, this argument has facts and valid arguments or examples, so it's cogent also. There is a limit here. किस किस को विक्टर फ्रैंकल के बारे में पता है? So एक लेवल की बेसिक रीडिंग आपकी होनी ही चाहिए. There is no, I would say, no substitute for basic readings of who people were, who some of the good leaders were, or some of the good minds in the history were. Okay, अगर आप यूपीएससी के एग्जाम लिख रहे हो और पढ़ाई लिखाई में इतना डब्बा गोल है, तो बेटर है बैंक एग्जाम लिखो. ठीक है? इस एग्जाम को लिखने के लेवल इतने बढ़ चुके हैं कि रैंक होल्डर्स आर गोइंग टू ऑप्टिमाइज ऑन एवरी सिंगल मार्क इन द मेंस एग्जाम. या मैन सर्च फॉर मीनिंग, राइट. सो विक्टर फ्रैंकल ने एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात कही थी कि ओके बिटर एक्सपीरियंसेस या जब लाइफ में विपत्तियां आती हैं तो मैन स्टार्ट्स लुकिंग फॉर मीनिंग, बट नॉट एवरी वन इज एबल टू फाइंड द मीनिंग. ठीक है. एंड इफ यू आर नॉट एबल टू फाइंड द मीनिंग फॉर वॉट एवर रीजन, then your bitter experiences will only cause you suffering. Then it will make you just more bitter. And this is an important point. This is a nuance. ये समझ में आ रहा है? Now I am challenging the assumption of this essay topic. I'm kind of taking you to a ride ki maybe not. Maybe if I'm not able to find the meaning for whatever reasons, it'll only make me more bitter, or it will break me, or I'll go into depression, or I'll commit suicide, right? Any of these things. Now, the moment this happens, you start becoming mature with your essay writing. Now you go to the next level, which is this. Now you start questioning the assumption of the essay topic, which is what we call is the antithesis. You start figuring out the thesis might not hold the water. What if the person जिसने thesis दी है वो assume कर रहा है कि एक safety net है. ठीक है कि अगर मैं फेल हो गया तो माई सोसाइटी और माई गवर्नमेंट और माई फैमिली वॉट एवर इज आउट देयर एज अ सेफ्टी नेट फॉर मी. तभी तो वो एक्सपीरियंस मेरे लिए कुछ लर्निंग दे जाएगा. व्हाट इफ आई हैव नो सेफ्टी नेट? व्हाट इफ आई एम अ फार्मर whose crop fails and now I'm in debt? What if I'm someone from a marginal section and I had only one shot at clearing the exam and I could not, and now I have to return back to the workforce because there are no social schemes, right? This is where your knowledge from GS papers will come in handy. Your examples from GS papers will come and save you. Okay? And you have to then apply here to give a valid antithesis, which is basically a antithesis point, like a but. Yeah, mostly best lessons are learned through better experiences, but if I don't have the privilege, I might not learn it. और आप जैसे जैसे मेच्योर होगे आपका बट और नुआंस होते चले जाएगा कि यार व्हाट इफ आई टेक दिस फिलॉसफी टू बी ट्रू, then to my expectation from the family, from society, from government, from my nation will be downgraded, right? They might just institutionalize this whole thing कि होता है ना पहले के जमाने में when अमिताभ बच्चन used to be in his prime, there was a famous dialogue called मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता, सुना? उस डायलॉग के साइड इफेक्ट्स ये थे कि men cannot cry, or men cannot voice out their burdens to the society, right? So these are the nuances which you have to pick up from society. Okay, and अगर आप pick up कर लोगे, अगर आप अभी, if this is making sense to you, trust me, you will be able to write it on the essay also. Like Rupal said, right? Pick up a week, every week, just write one essay for yourself. धीरे धीरे करते करते you will be able to write better essays. And then you will be able to write better antithesis. Lastly, and I think I'll save this for the last. Once you have done thesis and antithesis better, अब क्या करोगे? Now you have to give a way forward. Yeah, now you have to balance these two competing opinions, right? तो एक तरफ आपने बोला कि yes, better experiences can make you a better man or a better woman, right? एक तरफ आपने बोला but this is assuming a lot. It's assuming that I do have a safety net, that the society is kind enough to carry me forward, right? Might not happen again. अब सिंथेसिस बनाने के लिए मतलब कि तो क्या करें करने के लिए यू विल हैव टू फाइंड अ थर्ड एंगल कि एक्चुअली इतना सिंपल नहीं होता. यू हैव टू गो मच मोर नुआंस्ड इनटू व्हाट गिव्स अ बेटर लर्निंग. तो जैसे जैसे 1991 वाला रिफॉर्म का एग्जांपल मैंने लिया था फ्रॉम इंडियन इकोनॉमी, वी क्रैश्ड आर फॉरेन रिजर्व्स वर acutely short. इतना था कि वी हैड टू बेसिकली टेक आर गोल्ड एंड ट्रांसपोर्ट इट टू आउटसाइड इंडिया to get a bailout from there. But because we had these economists, because we had Manmohan Singh, we had Montek Singh Ahluwalia, we had other great folks back then, they were able to figure out karna kya hai. So bailing out from the reform, bailing out from that crisis needed people, needed a very nice fundamental in the society, which could also help us navigate through this devastating time. समझ में आ रहा है? अगर ये नहीं होता ना तो वो बिटर एक्सपीरियंसेस हमको क्रैश कर देता. ठीक है. अब आप थोड़ा नुआंस में गए हो एंड ये तीन चीजें करनी होती हैं हर ऐसे में. एक है थीसिस जो आपका क्वेश्चन स्टेटमेंट है, उसको आप जस्टिफाई करोगे विद एग्जांपल्स. एक है एंटी थीसिस विच इज योर बट्स कि यार लग तो सही रहा है लेकिन इट माइट नॉट बी ऑलवेज ट्रू, राइट. एंड थर्ड इज द सिंथेसिस विच विल टीच इन डिटेल तो अभी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है अगर अभी नहीं समझ में आया इतना, बट आई होप यू आर एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड the arc of maturity that you have to build. Okay, I leave the slides of the deck with the group so that you understand, and you in your own sweet time you go through this and you understand कि इतने सारे, क्या बोलोगे हिंदी में, पहलू बोलते हैं, पर्सपेक्टिव बोलते हैं, which you need to understand over time in your preparation to be a very mature person as you prepare for your final rank. Okay, I'll leave these things, I'll leave these technical things on the deck, and now I'll pass it on to Rupal again to tell us very quickly on her ethics preparation.
Hi, everyone, again. So, let's quickly discuss how to approach ethics. Now, like I said, a lot of things about the stepwise essay preparation. In ethics, also, I'll go stepwise. So, first thing that you need to do in ethics is understand the syllabus. You open the syllabus, you see what all topics are there for you to study, and then you pick up any coaching institution's material. You read the theoretical aspect of it, understand the philosophy given by various thinkers, Socrates, Aristotle, etc. And after you have done this reading at least thrice, that is when the conceptual understanding will, build up. Because ethics is one paper which I personally found very challenging, because it is very difficult if you are a beginner. I had no connection with ethics whatsoever during my law graduation, and that is why I struggled to understand basic things like, what was Aristotle's cardinal virtues, what is Kant's categorical imperative. All these technical terms I did not understand, so I began from the basics. I read any coaching institute's material you pick up topic wise, read, but stick to just one source. Just stick to one source, read topic wise, based on your syllabus. This you do thrice, like I said. Then you look at the previous year questions as well, because previous year questions will provide you the understanding of how to make your notes should always reflect whatever topics were asked in the previous years, because ultimately, if you see, ethics has a lot of themes like essays which are repeated by the UPSC. So, for example, the one question on social media was asked in 2024 as well as in 2025. So you should have in your notes ready the ethical dimensions of using social media, the ethical issues which arise out of it, and the ethical dilemmas it presents. So once you have all these things in your notes, you will be able to attempt any answer in ethics. So the content building for ethics, again, firstly happens from the basic one source notes which you will read from any coaching institutes. Secondly, you will keep building up on the examples. Examples can, once you have topic wise notes ready, you will know that, I need examples for values like integrity. I need examples for attitudinal change. So all these examples come from either newspapers, or you can follow, any websites like the Better India. I personally picked a lot of examples from Toppers copies as well. They have a lot of good examples. You can pick up from their copies as well. So this is how you build up your examples in ethics. Okay. And it is very important that you collect a lot of quotes, anecdotes, etc. You collect a lot of it, and topic wise. If you look at my ethics notes, which I have already shared on my Telegram channel, you will see that for every topic in the syllabus, I have one famous author or one famous quote from any of the authors. For example, the question on if a question comes on attitude, then by Zig Ziglar there is a quote: "It is attitude and not aptitude which determines your altitude." So this is a simple quote which highlights the importance of attitude. And in 2025 ethics paper, there was a question on attitude itself. There was a statement that the greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitude. The statement was said by William James. Now, this statement is talking about the importance of attitude and changing your attitude at that. So when in the examination hall I read this statement, immediately I figured that I have to talk about the importance of attitude and how there are various kinds of attitude and what impact does changing your attitude have. Okay. So I and this quote of Zig Ziglar immediately came to my mind, and I had decided that I will conclude my answer with this quote. So you have to understand that whatever preparation happens in your preparation phase, something or the other, you will find that a question comes from those topics which you have prepared. And one quote doesn't mean you'll be able to use it only in one answer. You can use it across topics. So when you're collecting quotes, try to collect quotes which are, kind of broad and talk about and will help you in a lot of answers. So keep that in mind while preparing your notes. Also, I had collected names of various authors, books, etc., which were new, which probably would not have been heard by other aspirants. Like, a lot of people quote 1984 to emphasize the importance of free speech, democracy, etc., but I collected the example of Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. So, in your preparation, throughout your preparation, you will realize that there are a lot of examples you can choose from, and you don't have to go anywhere to collect these examples. You read newspaper every day, somewhere or the other, you will come across numerous examples, and you can note them down, but don't overdo, because you have to realize you should only write that down which you can revise. So don't collect too many examples, because ultimately what will happen is you will not be able to remember any of them in your actual examination. So collect examples wisely, and make sure that you keep revising your notes. Okay. So when this content building has happened, now I will advise you to go and attempt the previous year questions, because, like I mentioned, previous year questions in ethics are often repeated. So you need to attempt each and every ethics question up from 2013 onwards at least 2 times, because there is no better practice for ethics than the previous year questions. You do that. And what I also did for ethics was, I had some frameworks ready for topics which are often asked. For example, the again I'll mention the social media, the ethical issues arising out of social media. I had a skeleton prepared, because it is the echo chambers and all these issues are in news quite a lot. So I knew that a question can be expected from social media. So I had already prepared a list of ethical issues which arise from social media: sensationalism, echo chambers, anonymity, which is being misused by a lot of people, data bias, algorithmic which bias which is there on social media. So, all these things I had already had in my notes. And that is what makes it easier for you to, attempt an answer in the examination. And again, time management, I will like to emphasize, is very important in ethics paper. So when you're writing an ethics answer at home, try to complete any 10 marker answer in 7 minutes. And for any case study, maximum 14.5 minutes. That's how you practice your ethics questions at home. Okay, that once you have this practice, only then will you be able to finish ethics paper in time. And believe me, it is really important for you to complete it. Otherwise, you will lose a lot of marks. Like, every topper suggests that at least your paper should be completed. You should not leave anything in ethics. Okay, because even 1 mark matters a lot. So keep that in mind. Time management is of utmost importance. Now, like I was mentioning, I had some frameworks ready for topics. Emotional intelligence, for example, again, I had a framework, a diagram also ready. If that question comes, I will make this diagram. So when you're making notes, do pay some importance to trying to make small little diagrams. You don't have to make diagram consciously in every ethics answer, because it doesn't add a lot of value. But for questions like emotional intelligence, attitudinal change, etc., it is very easy for you to make like a triangular Aristotelian triad. There is a method of changing attitude, Aristotelian triad it is called. So when you read properly, topic wise, you will come across all these terms, and you will see how logos, ethos, pathos, all these things Aristotle has talked about, which can be used to make various kinds of appeal to people and change their attitude. So applied ethics questions can also come on this topic, like how will you change the attitude of people towards, female infanticide? How will you convince them? Now, this convincing itself is what? Attitudinal change. How will you bring about it? You talk about ethos, pathos, logos. Others will just give basic answers, I will try to talk to them, I will do this, I will do that. But in ethics answers, what is required of you is to use keywords. Keywords are of utmost importance. Like I said, Aristotelian triad, ethos, pathos, logos. If you use these key terms, it will show to the examiner that yes, you have a deep understanding of the various ethical concepts. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for you to understand the various ethical theories, because that is what helps you in case studies for decision making. If you're trying to give a particular course of action in any case study, you are required to justify it with an ethical basis. For example, me being a crisis manager, being the DM of a district, during disaster management, this year only a question came that my mother's funeral is supposed to be held, and I'm required by cultural, ritual, I'm required to perform the rituals. But I cannot leave my district because the landslide, because of the disaster which the landslide is causing. So, what are the ethical issues facing you? How will you decide? So, when you write the ethical issues, your understanding of various ethical concepts should show. You should say that there will be a knower doer split. There will be a conflict between dedication to public service versus duty to own familial duty. So all these things you will have to write. And when you give the course of action, what will you ultimately do? You will delegate the responsibility to someone else, or you will, try to ask your sister who is abroad to come back and do the, or you will put the body in some, whatever place to preserve it, so that you can come back and perform the last rites. So all this course of action, you are just not required to write it like that. You're required to support it. Okay, you're required to support it with proper philosophical philosophies, ethics, ethical concepts, etc. So when you start writing the PYQs, you also take a look at the toppers copies and see how they have, in every statement the toppers write in brackets, they will always mention why they are doing it. Okay, so that is very important.
Hey,
So
Rupal,
fairly, I think this is what ethics is
I'll
all
just take a
about.
moment just to make things very tangible to the people. And I just took it because Rupal was mentioning about one such dilemma which came in the paper last year. So let's say this is the dilemma which comes. You are a DM, and now there's an issue with respect to efficiency versus integrity. ठीक है, ये वाला part पढ़ो. A coastal zone highway is proposed. It cuts through a mangrove forest area, which is, it's a reserve area. And the minister calls you that this file must be clear by the evening because the cost of delay of this project is 1 CR per day. So now you know that if you're a bureaucrat, and this is where your technical understanding and your command over some of the theories is important. If you're a bureaucrat, you are supposed to obey to your minister, right? And every delay that you cause, if your minister is giving you a sanction and if you're causing a delay, is basically a tax on the nation, right? So the ethical verbiage, which is going to be your X factor in your answer, would be hierarchical loyalty is a foundational value of bureaucracy, right? That's a rule, right? It is there. Now, if you to follow the rule or follow the principle or not, वो अलग बात है, but it's a principle. But there's an antithesis to this efficient decision making. The antithesis is कि यार, but blind obedience to an illegal order is not loyalty. It's kind of a co-conspiracy thing, right? जैसे essays में आपने टॉपिक देखा होगा कि something like, if you're silent at a on a bad event, then you're as morally complicit in that event, you know. Yeah, for the cost of doing wrong sometimes is better than the cost of doing nothing, right? आप कुछ नहीं करोगे, that's even far more worse than you do something and it might be wrong, right? You don't stand up when something bad is happening. So the antithesis to this case study would be that blind obedience to an illegal order is not loyalty. It's kind of, I'm breaching the public trust, right? And then how will you justify it ethically? What will you write as an X factor? You will say that officer who is me here, I have pledged my allegiance to the constitution and not to the minister, even though minister outranks me and in the hierarchy he comes up, but my allegiance is with the constitution. And so your synthesis, your way out, something which you will write in the answer, would have to be that, I will show a written dissent. I will not refuse to sign, but I will sign with a disclaimer that on the record I have put my objections there. And so if you have to put this down in your mains paper, your ethical verbiage, your writing should include these technical points: the doctrine of written accountability. You will execute the order, but you will anchor the responsibility on the political executive. ठीक है, अब इतना सब याद नहीं रहेगा, तो सिर्फ पहला वर्ड याद रह सकता है, द डॉक्ट्रिन ऑफ रिटन अकाउंटेबिलिटी. ठीक है, इस सिंपल केस स्टडी के ये 3 स्टेप बाय स्टेप पहलू हैं. सो इफ यू स्टडी एसेज within the task framework, within the thesis, antithesis, synthesis framework, your ethics paper is also, your applied ethics paper specifically, is also going to be easy. बिकॉज अब तुम दोनों कंपीटिंग पहलू देख पाओगे और उनको सिंथेसाइज कर पाओगे तमीज से. And once you do that, you'll also be able to put, like Rupal said, some technical jargons to back up your point. ठीक है, ऐसे ही बहुत सारे और भी केसेस हैं विद दी. सो दिस इज अ पीडीएफ ऑन द एनवायरनमेंट सेक्शन. सो अप्लाइड एथिक्स क्रॉस एनवायरनमेंट, राइट? यू वुड हैव टॉपिक्स ऑन ग्रीन वॉशिंग. सो आपको जो केस स्टडीज आएंगी वो आपको इन थीम से आएंगी. कॉम्पनसेटरी एफॉरेस्टेशन में से कोई केस स्टडी आ जाएगी, या नेट जीरो इल्यूजन में से आ जाएगा. क्लीन प्रोडक्ट्स, आर ईवीज आर 100% क्लीन. एंड यू वुड बी द डीएम और यू वुड बी द सैंक्शनिंग अथॉरिटी एंड यू विल हैव टू टेक अ डिसीजन. अब आप डिसीजन कैसे लोगे? आपके क्या डिलेमास हैं? आपकी थीसिस एंटीथीसिस क्या है जिनसे आप स्ट्रगल करोगे? दैट इज व्हाट यू हैव टू पुट ऑन द पेपर in those limited 250 150 whatever words, right? This is how you need to develop your headspace. And people who are going to attempt in 2027, you have time and you have the right kind of content out there. What you need is basically a good mentor who can kind of keep guiding you step by step, week over week, ki sahi ja rahe ho ki galat ja rahe ho, whatever, right? So whichever course you end up joining, make sure that at least उनका content rigor इस level पे हो. इससे नीचे तो you'll just end up wasting your years. ठीक है? Because Civilsdaily is built by engineers, and so we have huge faith in rows and columns and breaking down the whole complex things into piecemeal logical flows. And therefore, for every case study, you would be given thesis, antithesis, synthesis, etc., etc. Okay? And that's what Rupal was trying to tell you, that the more you read, the more you reflect, and the more widely you collect the technical knowledge or technical jargon, especially for the ethics, you will be able to substantiate your answers better and score the maximum marks.